Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live. As part of our Humanising Work series, we're streaming live today on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, and we will be uploading this to our Spotify podcast channel as well for those people who like to listen to the audio files. Welcome, my name is Alex Bailey. I'm the CEO of Bailey & French, and I'm joined today by Ant. How are you doing, Ant?
Yeah, I'm good. And hello, everyone that's joining across pretty cool platforms. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm stuck in this sound booth box, which feels a bit strange, but hopefully you can hear me all right.
Yeah, I can hear well, and that's good. And I'm sure many people have been in that situation as well. We're working in lots of different locations now. I'm really pleased to see so many people across the world joining us from lots of different types of organisations to talk today about skills-based organisations. And I am full of energy for this conversation because it is a hot topic. I know I'm always trying to talk about hot topics and trends, but I'm literally bombarded with stuff about skills-based organisations at the moment. So we've got a really rich discussion to be had. We're going to post some great questions, bust some myths. We're going to give you some great takeaways as well, so that anyone listening who wants to actually bring some of this thinking back into their own organisation has got some really good ways that they can do that immediately. So I hope everyone can join in. Please do say hello in the chat feed. Ask us your questions throughout. We'll try to get to as many of those as possible. We've got our team supporting us as well. Please do say hello where you are calling in from. We will have that come up on the screen for everybody, and we'll get going really talking about skills-based organisations. So this is. It's been building and building and building, but since January there seems to be an explosion around talking about skills. Future skills, digital skills, how are we going to fill the skills gap? What are we going to do with skills? What is happening? Why has this all of a sudden happened? This is very much kind of influenced quickly from January this year. Like it was a hot topic last year, but it's like everyone's come back to work after a break and it's
Yeah.
skills. What's happening?
Well, I think it's budget conversations, right? It's new year. Let's look ahead. Let's look at the next 3, 5 years. Let's build the strategy and really let's go and revisit some of those things that we were talking about, but we forgot about because everything else got in the way. That's the sense that I'm getting from speaking with clients across the world, which has been really fun, but also our learning partners. And hello, those of you who are joining today. I know that you've been watching for this hot topic, but I was looking at some of the trend reports from 2023, 2022, but also you go back as far as the 80s, the 90s. It's sort of whenever there's that pivotal moment in technology, I think in particular that sort of heightens the conversation, and I think AI's sort of brought that about, right?
Yeah, because you are exactly right. It highlights almost like our gaps, and we are ridiculously trained to focus on our deficiencies, which doesn't suit us. Obviously, as an organisation, we try to focus on the positive and what people already have existing in their kind of their skill set toolkit. Um, but it is a thing, you know. People do like to think about what don't I have and how can I close that? How can I be better by covering all my bases?
For sure.
And it's, you know, even that in itself is just a huge hurdle to overcome when we're thinking about skills. So it's really important to think about the impact of having some of these conversations on, particularly, I think, in large organizations, but all types of organizations and industries and markets. Talking about the technological advances, obviously in the last year things have moved significantly, and they are still, and they're impacting our work. And you know, every day I come in to find some of my platforms are telling me I can do even more with AI, and it's great. I love it. You know, I'm really embracing it and enjoying trying all the little buttons and the new things that are available. And not everybody has that opportunity, I understand. And not everyone feels that comfortable with it either. So there's this thing about digital dexterity, people feeling comfortable to use those new technologies as they arise. But does it mean that we need to fundamentally change
No.
organizations in terms of how we look at them and how we look at work? So we've constantly reframing, looking at how we can improve
Yeah.
work, make efficiencies, make effectiveness. But is it this big thing that everyone's making out to be? Because I'm going to propose today, and this is quite controversial, I know. I'm very excited that we've got lots of people on the call today who are already doing lots of things with skills. So I'm a little bit concerned that it's leading down an emperor's new clothes piece, and that actually it's covering and hiding some other deficiencies that we have. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree, right? That's what we do at Bailey and French. We look at something, we look at a trend, and we go, "Well, hang on a minute, that's way too expensive. That's not the right way to do that. That's not the human approach to that." And although the intentions are right and the models look good and on paper, yes, all the different trend reports that I've been looking at for PwC, Deloitte, they are fantastic and they are interesting to look at. But we don't operate in that perfect world. So I love to kind of go, that's just not practical, especially in the environment with the geopolitical landscape that's going on, the financial side, the human elements that affect us as human beings that are at the heart of this change. It's just
Mhm.
not practical from my point of view.
And that's the thing, isn't it? So I think it's really important to if we haven't had the opportunity to work in a large organization ourselves, I'm very lucky that I have. So I understand that complexity, the matrix, the global kind of operating across different time zones, functions, departments, and all kinds of complexities that exist in large organizations. When you have that context and that understanding, when someone then comes along and says, actually, we're just going to move away from talking about jobs and we're just going to talk about tasks and skills instead, it completely blows your mind to think about what that means for a large organization. How could you not have a job? And I'm interested and I'm intrigued when I hear these points come up, because I'm thinking, really, is that what we really think is the thing about skills-based organizations, is that we need to kind of move away from talking about jobs and lose the clarity of what the whole kind of job entails and just focus on enticing people and recruiting them in for tasks and skills? And there's an immediate reaction to me, because obviously we work in this humanizing workspace, that absolutely doesn't feel human. It doesn't feel like it actually puts the human first, which hilariously I'm seeing in every people strategy this year. People first, human first. Fantastic to see it being given a priority, but often being given as the last pillar of a strategy, which in itself is a
Yeah,
little ironic. But also then people are still going ahead and putting the organization first in terms of what the organization needs, and then
yeah.
trying to say that they're just engaging with people differently. And that's not a human first approach either. So I'm going off topic here a bit, but I'm quite excited about this whole move from skills and tasks from jobs, and what that means for individuals, because surely we're missing the point here, is that adding another taxonomy of how people do stuff is only ever helpful if we strip out what's already there, right?
Yeah, well, and especially as jobs and roles and tasks are evolving at such rapid pace. I read somewhere, it's like a half-life of something, and it's just not surviving. The job today is completely different tomorrow, and therefore you're having to constantly update your skills taxonomy if that's the way that you want to do it. Having a language around that might be easier with AI because, of course, large language models, that's the purpose of them, but just because it's easier doesn't mean it's more accurate or valid and reliable. How are we assessing these strengths? How do we have conversations about these skills that are within the organization? How do we actually mobilize the talent to get them in front of these tasks? It's a complete mindset and shift that an organization would have to go through at the time when they're struggling the most.
Exactly. So, like, from what I understand, talking to everyone at the moment, we're as lean as we can be. Any cuts at the moment in terms of moving people out of organizations actually hurts the organization. It actually stops us doing something we're already doing. There's no kind of easy jobs that we can move around and repurpose. So actually, you're right. At a time when resource is so stretched, the thought of changing how people even think about work is a huge task. And we really need to think about, timing wise, is that even the right thing? But also, and I said before, it's like, are we missing the point of what we can do here with skills? So I'd love to propose a kind of a different way of thinking about things. And we've got some amazing breadth of audience here. It's lovely seeing everyone say hello from where they are right the way across the world, and what an amazing global audience. We should really harness that. So I really want everyone who's listening in to think about, what are your questions? What are you grappling with in terms of a skills-based organization? Whilst I just talk a little bit about kind of our simplified model. And I don't want to be too reductionist here, but it is important to think about what's the most important thing here is that people can be seen, heard, valued and respected for the work they do. They can do a good job, they can enjoy it, and they can go home feeling great at the end of the day. That's what we really want. Connected, aligned, cohesion. We want people to feel like they are valued for what they do and their unique contribution. But if we don't have clarity of what our unique contribution is in the whole, then how can we feel good about it or feel that we're performing? So it really, this really matters to the entire employee experience, from attraction, assessment, recruitment, induction, career, leadership development, succession planning. We've got to get this right. We can't just launch something into organizations and ask everyone to shift to thinking about tasks without removing some of the complexity that exists. So I'm not a keen fan of the kind of task-based skills organization. I think we've got an opportunity here to think about what managers now and leaders who are the arms into our organizations, what they need. And what they need is simple, easy, obvious ways of working with and for others and through others. And skills can be a really helpful way of thinking about development and growth. But not on top of competencies, capabilities, values, mindsets, behaviours.
Yep.
Those things are really tricky for general, particularly first-time managers who've never worked in HR, never done a psychology degree, never really studied that field, particularly those technical experts that have ended up being people managers. How are they supposed to develop competence in someone else, or capability in someone else, or a mindset shift, or a behavior? Because those things are made up of knowledge, skills, strengths, lots of different things. So to develop a competence, you've got to break it down into so much detail. It's very, very hard to work on. So what we've done, we've worked with organizations, and some very large organizations, I would say, who have adopted our model, and it's helped them move forward right the way across the people development space, is focusing on three things. So knowledge that we can learn. Knowledge we can learn through watching videos, listening to podcasts, reading books and articles and blogs. That's just our memory store. It's just about how much information we can gather that's relevant to what we need to do. That's one thing. So learning knowledge. Skills development. Everyone can learn skills, and we can have technical skills, soft skills, digital skills, all types of skills. Anyone can learn a skill. A skill is just a thing that we do, and the more you do it, repeat it, the better you get at it. And anyone can develop any number of skills. Doesn't mean we're going to like doing them, and that's a really critical factor. And I think that's really helpful to understand, is that as a person you can develop your skill set to have a number of skills, and if you thought about it you could probably list off thousands. The strengths aspect, then adding that on of knowledge, skills, and then your strengths, that's the unique contribution that you make, how you as a wonderful human being on this planet with your very unique strengths have learnt to navigate this world and to do what you do well. And knowing that we all have those strengths is just a beautiful kind of embracing of diversity in everywhere, and is a universal human connector for us. But looking at jobs in terms of knowledge, skills and strengths, that's really helpful, because it's a job is a context that already exists in organizations that's very hard to shift. We don't need to shift from job to skill. We can shift from competence, capabilities, behaviors, mindsets. We can just focus on knowledge, skills and strengths in our jobs. And that, from the work that we've done and the organizations we've worked with, is so liberating. And it's an easy model. People get it. Managers understand, okay, I need to make sure they've got this knowledge to do the job, and then I need to help them train in these skills. And it's going to be through repetitive practice with peers, often through dialogue, often opportunities to make mistakes in a psychologically safe environment. That's how you build skill. And then it just makes me look at all these models that are coming out and think, I'm literally laughing at some of the reports that I'm seeing. I'm thinking, how would anyone suggest to add that amount of complexity in? Sorry, I've
Yeah.
gone off in one out. What are you thinking? We've got some good comments coming through. Tell me what you think, people who are listening. This is really interesting to hear your thoughts.
Well, yeah, but this is it. I was just listening, and Dan, thank you for your comments, Kate, as well. It's really interesting hearing the thoughts coming through. For me, the strengths bit is the one that's missed the most, right? I was at the World of Learning event yesterday here in the UK, in London, and there was a lot of conversation, as there is every year at that event, around LMS and learning programs and online learning, and it's all geared towards knowledge, the acquisition of new knowledge to be able to maybe do a skill, maybe. But no one was really talking about skill in the way that it should be. The what do I need to do to overcome a problem? And I love Josh Bersin's point on this. It's like fall in love with the problem. What can we be a problem first company where we have a look at, well, we build skill to overcome a problem. We don't just randomly build knowledge and skill generally, but then how we do it as a unique human being is our strength. And okay, you could argue there's, personality and there's situation that you're going through in your personal life and all of those things that also make you human. But if we can just strip all of this back to a very simple, what knowledge do I need to overcome that problem? What skill do I need to overcome that problem? And how
Mhm,
am I going to do it in a way that's authentic to who I am and keeps me energized?
mhm.
Spot on. What else do we need?
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, is that I think it's being overcomplicated, and I'm sure other people are recognizing it as well. I had another piece just ping into my inbox moments before we joined this chat, talking about the skills gap. I'll just
The
quote that.
AI is listening.
Yeah, exactly. And the quote was, "The skills gap is not a genuine problem, but rather an excuse for weak leadership to avoid addressing the real issues." Wow, that was from Vendux, by the way. Great, great quote. And I was thinking, yeah, people are seeing this. People are recognizing that some of these big trending topics and the suggestions and solutions that are being put forward are highly impractical and actually not going to work in large organizations. And so, if we are going to embrace skills, what are we going to drop? We really have to stop telling managers to develop competencies in people, because they don't know how to. They also don't know how to shift someone's mindset. Mindsets change throughout the day. I've studied this extensively around growth mindset. You can have a switch from growth mindset to a fixed mindset within an hour. It's not something that sets. So once it's almost like that word set is the wrong word to use, because it gives the impression that something stays that way, and it doesn't. So constantly having to think about shifting people's mindset is a real, like, that's a real ask for a new manager who's never done any kind of people management things before. We need to
Yeah.
give them really simple frameworks that can actually really embrace the simplicity of working with people.
Yeah.
What do they know? What can they do? And how do they like to do it? That is as simple as it needs to be. And we can apply that to recruitment. We can apply that to performance management. We can apply that to succession planning, talent mapping, because it is a simple model. But we do have to stop asking managers to try and change people's behaviors. Behaviors are a complex thing that's made up of so many different aspects of who we are in our lives. Managers can't change someone's behavior. It's really significant to be able to change behavior. And a skill is something, as I said, that you can do, and it comes through discipline. And that's the repetitive practice. It's discipline. So maybe it's more about how do we support environments that are psychologically safe for people to continue being disciplined in their learning and their approach, to not giving up after the first time they try something and it doesn't work, and having that resilience to say, I'm going to try it again until I get better at it. And
Yeah.
it's that kind of that focus on skills. And I think that's really what this quote earlier was referring to, was the skills gap. Is it the fact that we haven't got managers really supporting people to learn and develop their skills and keep going and try again and not give up?
Yeah. And we know the answer to that is no. We know that managers are not having any conversation, let alone a good conversation about anything, well-being, career development. We know that that's the case, and that's why, what was it, 75% or so of people are looking for a new job this year. One of the huge reasons is the manager. The other reason is the team. Can teams be talking about this? How are you equipping the team? Because the manager, I love the the thing that's come out about the Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp and the resignation. And I know the US are following this as closely as what the UK and all over the world, because yet another leader is burning out and is publicly saying so on such a huge scale. And sport is obviously a huge channel for communication. And why are we putting the onus on just the leaders having these types of conversations? I guess what I am seeing though is where AI could play a part in this, and this is really interesting to me because I was kind of trying to do a lot of research into this and critique it, because where are we really with AI at the moment? But where we could be is a place where you don't need a manager. There's a lot of organizations, especially tech, who are really trying to trim the fat around management, right? And actually, AI could maybe step into the place. So you can imagine, for example, an AI going, "Hey, such and such task is coming up. You don't have knowledge in this area. You might want to read X, Y, Z and go on this course before you're entered into that project." Or, "Hey, you've got these skills. Have you thought about how you're going to be using them more? And here's a list of opportunities within our company that really require that strength." Yes, amazing, perfect use of AI, and brilliant. There's a lot of things that relies on. But are they the right things that naturally play to what give you life and energy and purpose of meaning and satisfaction? And does that change? I tell you what, you need someone who's going to coach you and talk you through that. And that's where I don't think management's going to be around, but I think leadership 100% will be. And okay, we'll strip some of that management level back, but I think we'll replace it with a layer of with a layer of leadership to guide and nurture and entice people to strive for more. And that's maybe where the mindset shifts and the behavior shifts will start to happen. But like you say, it doesn't happen overnight.
No, and on scale, it doesn't always happen in the same direction either. And so I'm very excited about what you're talking about there, because actually it does make a difference. It does really help people. And when people see it being more helpful, they do more, right? So it's about that understanding, that embracing of something new and reducing the cognitive load at the same time. And I think that's really powerful, isn't it? Because we are seeing, huge amounts of burnout where people are focusing on a high performance model that is all about these competencies and behaviors. And I must behave in accordance to the values and hit the leadership capabilities and make sure that I've got all the competencies in the framework ticked off so that I can get my bonus at the end of the year and so that I can get promoted. And actually, we just need a simpler model for people, don't we? To really feel like they've got clarity. What can you do? And someone had mentioned earlier, I'm just looking back through the points. I think it was Dan talking about opportunities for career growth. Lots of organizations this year are focusing in on retention. They're not growing as quickly as they said they would because they're looking at the economic markets globally and saying, no, we'll sit tight now, actually. We'll work with what we've got. And that means really focusing on retaining fantastic performers. And a lot of the high performers are the ones who have a real vested interest in that work. And they're burning out because they're being asked to do
Yeah.
more and more and more, and the resource is stretched and the targets aren't changing. And it's that kind of focus in on how do we help them feel like this is an exciting opportunity to learn and grow without being stretched so far that it feels inhuman. And that's the exciting part with the caution. It's
Yeah.
exciting to think about skills, releasing an opportunity for people to see a simpler model, to work easier on their career development for themselves autonomously, or with managers who find it a bit easier to focus on it this way. But yeah, what does that mean for the individual in terms of the humanness of it? How far away do we get from human before we suddenly realize that's the gap? And it's like, I don't want to get to a point where the human is the gap, right? And we're all sitting there going, oh gosh, we need to focus on human. It's got to be at the forefront of our minds while we're focusing on this. And I'd love to hear some more. Thank you, Bogdan. Please add some more questions in. If you've got any questions that you're thinking about for your organization right now, bring them into the chat. Let's hear, because we can bring through some of those. But I've also had a note through. I think we've got a QR code that's available shortly for you to download an article we've just written. There we go. I'm hoping
As
that's
if by magic.
for
Look at
you.
that.
Thank you, team and Mike. This QR code should lead you to be able to download our article on skills-based organizations, which talks about everything we're covering today, probably in a bit more coherence, with a focus in on how can we use a skills-based organization as a move to a simpler model rather than a shift to adding more complexity when we're already stretched. And I think a really key part of this is recognizing that humans are stretched and saying we're not going to do more, we're going to do less. So if you're switching to looking at strengths, what are we going to take away? We cannot keep adding more and more. We cannot ask people to look at vision, strategy, mission, values, capabilities, competencies, behaviors, mindsets, and then say, oh, and we're going to get rid of jobs and move to skills. It does
Yeah.
not work.
Yeah, we talk about, organizations really needing to up the pace of their performance, get more agile, be more innovative. Crikey, I wonder why they're not. That's a lot to take in. That's a lot to focus on that isn't about solving the problem in front of you, right? And it's really interesting what you're talking about with like the human aspects. I was really trying to think about this. What is the impact of this on the human side of things? And I think there's a huge actually load of value. For example, I know there's companies out there who have been doing this maybe for a few more years who are starting to get to the place where research is coming out about the effectiveness and things like EDI, the impact on that. Actually, if we're recruiting for skills, it kind of negates all of that. There's obviously a lot around those different skills that you can get from different people that you might not have recruited. So the talent pools that you're accessing, and of course with remote working, you can go all over. And I know outsourcing has always been a thing, but it's almost like come be part of our tribe for an hour, a month, however long. It's complete flexibility, and I love that. But I do think people struggle with flexibility because am I just a list of skills to you? We've just done a huge piece on take the human back into human resources and how to humanize HR. Well, this seems like the complete backward step to that.
It
So
is. I'm really against moving to a task-based model solely. I think people understand and feel connected to their jobs. They actually want a job. That's why they apply for it in the first place. There's lots of people working freelance in the gig economy, and it's very different. And I completely understand a task-based project focus for that. But this is different. This is about creating belonging. This is about retention. This is about long-term sustainable performance with a workforce that is actually part of an organization, committed to it, feeling part of it. And it's lovely to see you here joining us, Catherine. Thank you. It's lovely to be in touch again. You've got a great question there. What's your advice on where to start if you're an organization that doesn't talk skills at all? And, there are so many organizations in this space, and we're having this conversation. And actually, I've been talking to an organization last week who was saying, we've got this competency framework, but we want to move to a skills library. And I'm like, well, you could literally take the heading and just change it from competence to skill to skill. Why do you need a skills library? And we need to think about where can we start? What's the right thing? And I think it's about, are you ready really to move away from complex kind of descriptions that managers don't understand? So if you have a competency framework, if you have a capabilities kind of list, leadership capabilities lined up to your business strategy, if you have mindsets that you're trying to create in the organization. And I hate the ideas of behavioral frameworks because, again, it's not very authentic to help people really feel like they have a unique contribution to be told that you need to behave a certain way, because behavior is very personal. So look at what you've got and think, actually, if we parked that and we looked at what knowledge does someone need for this role, what skills do they need for this role, and how can they use their strengths to do that job well and to motivate them? That's kind of really where you start. And if you can look at job descriptions in that way, it simplifies them no end. Now, some jobs obviously have a huge amount of skills that are required to do that job, but actually the vast amount of roles that exist out there do not need, a list of 40 skills. There are some core skills that you need to have in that role and core knowledge in order to do the job. And if we can focus back onto that, that's one way of moving and shifting away, and then almost looking back then at what exists and going, so are these competencies even relevant anymore for this type of job? And I think if you start from there, you can use that obviously for recruitment, you can use it for You can use it for career development conversations, performance conversations, succession planning. And
Yeah.
the best people to ask are the people in their jobs. So, people want to be able to understand and have clarity so they can do their jobs really well and get recognized for it. Sit down a group of managers and say, can you simply use this template? What knowledge do you need for your job? Give us 5 points. And what 10 skills do you need for your job? Let them create it, and then look at what does the organizational future look like and whether or not we've got the skills that exist. Because often the people in the roles will be the best ones that tell us what skills they need. They'll also be the best ones that tell us what skills they don't have that they need to develop as well. We don't need to assume that, as an HR function or as a leader, we have all the answers. The people doing the jobs are the ones that are have the most insight and experience. So I'm really looking at all these comments coming through. I'll just pause there, Ab. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think there was a question around, well, what's the connection here to engagement, career development? It's, well, let's job craft, right? And I know that's not a new thing, but if you're job crafting around your strengths as much as your skills and aligning that to a problem that your organization wants to solve, because I think for me that's the place that I would start, without knowing obviously more about the context of the organization, what you've done, where you are, and all of those kind of caveats. I think if you know what problem you're trying to overcome with that person, that role, that existence, what are you trying to do by getting someone in, and also thinking, well, does it need to be as someone, could it be tech, and if it is going to be tech, how does the person or the team need to look to integrate with that technology? So I think by focusing first on what problem am I solving, you're then going, well, what knowledge, skills, and strengths do I need? And as you said, I think Unilever came up with something like 80,000 skills that they were going to need in the next 5 years. It's like, well, those are also going to change quite
Yeah.
significantly in that time. So I think there's a lot of reasons to just really simplify it. You're not going to get it perfect, but
Yeah.
it's kind of that Daniel Kahneman, just do enough,
Yeah.
right? It's just do enough, because we're already burning out and we just need to focus on performance and pace and having great conversations as we move and evolve.
Exactly. We don't want to put any more barriers in anyone's way, certainly not right now. And so I've had a chance to look at some of the comments. And Sandy, I am so with you. You're absolutely right. People are talking about skills. They're just using really complex terminology to do so that the organization has actually put on us, or some consultancy. You know, how people talk about the work that they do. If you switch to a skills mindset, it's really interesting, and you start using a knowledge, skills, and strengths framework. It's very hard to unlearn that and to unuse it. It becomes almost just like, oh, well, that's simpler. Let's just switch to that. So knowledge is what we can learn in terms of more information in our brain, and it's as simple as that. And skills are things that we can do: technical skills, human skills, digital skills. And that we're already doing those things. We're just trying to combine them together to make up this amorphous thing that's called a competence or a capability, which is like a combination of skills and knowledge and strengths and mindsets and everything. And it's very hard then for a manager to work out how to create that. So breaking it down to the simple aspects of knowledge, skills, and strengths really gives a helpful framework for people to shift to. And Bogdan, you've said, who makes for a powerful internal sponsor to spearhead a skills-based organization? It's a great question. If you're looking at this in an organization, I'm really changing our focus on how we look at kind of cultural evolution and how we make shifts in organizations at the moment. And quite often, when I talk to people about skills-based organizations with the simple framework that we use, senior leaders get it instantly. They absolutely learn at pace, and they're able to go see instantly whether something's going to work in their organization or not. They're the best people at challenging me, particularly those ones who don't work in HR and haven't used different frameworks before, but they've been the recipients of all this kind of learning over the years of how to work with people better. And so when you give them a simple framework and say, if we switch from this to this, what do you think? How will it affect your business unit? How will it affect commercial success? How will you help with your attrition figures and actually the recruitment growth, targets that you have for this year? Will this help you? What I love is that they see the simplicity and they get it. Pragmatic, practical approaches this year are going to win, hands down. No one wants something more complex that's going to cause chaos. And I am really aware that at the moment, the skills-based organizations pieces that are being put out there as suggested models to move to are simply chaotic, and that is really scary. I'm very concerned that organizations are in that same space of this is emperor's new clothes. What are they really saying? Actually, we're already doing this. Let's just think about how to use a new language that's easy for people to understand, to feel valued, to be able to learn and grow. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, agree. It's interesting because I'm kind of listening with a client mindset as well. Because obviously, having spoken to so many even this week who are going, right, this is the way we're going to do it this year, and it's going to be different. And then the next day they're going, we can't. Budget's been cut, change of plan, everything's on pause until we know more about elections and what's happening here. And I think, yeah, right, this is your opportunity to just do the basics really, really well. And if your managers haven't been having great conversations, well, no wonder why. I wouldn't even be calling it a new framework or any sort of business transformation program. This is just, good old fashioned, hey, managers, go have a conversation with people, understand what they need to know, understand what they need to be doing on a day-to-day basis, and help them to understand how that's going to keep them energized and alive the way that they do it. And I don't think that's too much to ask of a manager. If anything, I'm as a manager going to go, oh, thank goodness I don't have to do that 8-point rating scale and link it to rewards and all of those complexities that come with talking about behaviors and competencies and values and all of those different things. Just strip it right back this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about keeping simplicity and the pragmatic approach. And as Rupert and Catherine were sharing here, when people have a new terminology or something to take on, it can be confusing. But the switch that we've helped people make to that knowledge, skills, and strengths terminology, once people understand exactly, as Catherine said, the difference between skills and strengths, that really helps. And we're not using a visual here, so we can send you out a visual and talk to you about how it works in your own organization. So please do get in touch for that conversation afterwards. But, in terms of breaking it down into something simple, Rupert's asked a really good question there. Is this any simpler than competencies or just the same? I think it is much simpler. The reason being, as I said, is that knowledge is something that people can simply learn by reading, watching, or listening to a podcast. And people are using lots of different learning methods now to gain knowledge, but that doesn't challenge them to do something differently necessarily. It doesn't create dialogue. It's not necessarily always with peers. Sometimes it's quite self-directed and autonomous. So it's something that simply impacts your memory store. So knowledge is one thing that we can do that increases people's knowledge to do a job better, but that doesn't mean they're going to be able to do it if they don't have the skills that are required to do that job better. So actually then giving people an opportunity to learn skills in an environment where they're working in almost like a realistic job preview environment, where they are given the space to fail, to try something new, and to practice and repeat in as live a scenario as possible, is a great way of learning new skills. And VR is absolutely fantastic in this space as an opportunity to use new tech to actually give people the most realistic context for applying those new skills, with that kind of visual immersion of being in the environment when they're using it. But ultimately, the most important thing is that they feel safe to try. And they've got the resilience to keep trying until they develop their skill in it. It's repetition. Simple skills are developed through repetition. And I would say competencies are very, very different, and they are more complex, because a competency is a combination of knowledge, skills, and strengths. So then when you're asking a manager to develop a competency in someone, you've got to work out, is it because they need more knowledge? Is it because they haven't got the skills? Is it about their strengths alignment to this? And people struggle with that when, on top of competencies, they're then asked to have a values mindset and then a mindset shift. And these are the behaviors we expect. And I think the terminology has just got out of hand. I think people have spent too long trying to do things for people with good intention, very good intention, but it's come out with a really complex model. So shifting across is key. And as Catherine said, once people understand the difference between a skill and a strength, skills, we can learn millions of them. We can absolutely fill our toolkit with skills, but it doesn't mean we enjoy doing them. And it doesn't mean that we're ever really going to be excellent at them either. Strengths are those things we develop through our childhood years up to 17, where we're developing our neural pathways of how we navigate everything in the world. And strengths are really transferable from, doing some gardening and sowing some seeds in our vegetable plots at home, if we have those, or in our greenhouse, right the way through to then actually lining up, different pots or different tables in an Excel graph or a PowerPoint, because we like the structure and order of things. And that's a strength, and it's hugely transferable across functions. And that is the energy, the agility, the adaptability that could be released into organizations, is that transferability of this, rather than having to go for ripping out job descriptions and moving to task and project based in organizations in order to create agility. I'm not with that one. So thank you, Catherine, adding those pieces in too. And Sandeep, I'm reading your pieces here. Making it easier for the worker and the manager, 100%. That's what we're here to do, right? That's what we need to do. And keep the business on plan. It's aligning people and keeping them connected and going in the right direction. And then we've got about 5 minutes left, so please get any more questions coming through here. I just want to remind everybody of the QR code. You can sign up through that QR code to download our skills-based organisation article. It's got some more information about what we're talking about today, and some opportunities to connect in with us. We will have this available on our podcast, Spotify channel, and our YouTube and our Facebook, also available on LinkedIn afterwards to rewatch, so you can share that with others. But please do get in touch with us if you have any specific questions about how to move to this model in your organization. That's what we do. And we help people really bring the human side of it to life from the beginning, so that it's not a human gap afterwards once we've implemented a skills-based organization model. So really keen to understand what that means for your organization and how best to do it, but we love doing that. So please do get in any more questions that you have whilst we're still here for the next 5 minutes. And in summary, then, what would you say we're summarising here from this conversation?
Oh God, how do you summarize all of that 40-minute conversation? Yeah, thanks for that. Well, for me, as we've said, problem first, knowledge, skills, and strengths. Keep it really simple and easy, and then really think about that human element on the end. And that strengths piece is often the bit that's missing around that human side, right? I'm not just a list of skills, I'm a human being. So how do we align if you are moving to a more skills based organization? And I think the knowledge, skills, and strengths framework, if you're going to be calling it a framework, that is a type of skills based organization. It's just far more effective, far more simple and practical, and more relevant to organizations right now who are struggling with leaders who are burning out. It's just a better way of thinking about things. But that strengths piece, the bit of, okay, I'm a JavaScript, I know how to do that, I've now built a website based on that, that's the skill bit. But how I do it with my footprint, my uniqueness, that's the thing that organizations, when we talk about organizational health and we talk about resilience, that's the stuff that keeps us lit up and energized and firing on all cylinders, and helps us prepare for the next challenge. So in summary, for me, start with a problem. What are you trying to achieve? Go knowledge, skills, and strengths to keep it really simple, and then maximize that human element. Make sure people are having those conversations.
Love it. Well done. That was a really good summary. I'm going to jump into a couple of things that have come through recently. So Rupert's saying, do I advocate removing all the other concepts and adding in skills, strengths and knowledge in their place? That's actually what we've done with some very large organizations of up to 440,000 people across the world. And actually the impact of that across the employee life cycle and experience has been a release of energy into the organization, that they can do stuff that was baffling them before. So yes, I would say some people need to take different steps to doing that. So it doesn't work for everyone's kind of shifting from that focus, but we have got some really great case studies that show that actually it is hugely powerful, particularly in large organizations and complex organizations. Helen's asked, how do people host their frameworks so that they're there at the moment of need? I think it's about making it available as the way we look at working with people across the employee life cycle. So you talk about simple things, job descriptions, interview questions, so that actually when you come into the organization, that's how you're understanding people are understanding you. Then that through into onboarding of these are the types of things we're going to work with you on onboarding to develop those skills further in this context. A really good opportunity to bring it into our performance conversations and check-ins. Lots of people have different questions and scripts they use. It's just following that piece. Is, do you feel like you've got enough knowledge in this role right now to do what you're being asked to do? What skills could we support you to develop further? And how could you use your strengths to really enjoy what you're doing and focus further on that for career conversations too? So for me, it's about all the different templates, the touch points that managers have with individual people, but also the team conversations that happen too. So you could bring this through into team conversations on all different types of bases, and it doesn't need to be face to face. So we are talking right the way across the full spectrum of working environments. We've got a link here as well in the comments to people who want to download that article but don't have anything available to do QR codes right now. So please do have a look at that. We've got a whole host of content available. We've got free resource hubs. We've got all of our videos and events on LinkedIn and on and YouTube as well as Facebook. So please do connect with us in the platform and the way you like to the best. We love having these conversations. It's a great learning community with so many people across the world joining us today. I really appreciate you taking that time, and I recognise it's all kinds of hours for people who are joining us at the moment. So I am very privileged and honoured to have you joining us here, and thank you to everyone who got stuck in and asked questions and made comments. It really makes it feel interactive. But I would say my parting comment is really, don't imagine that there's some big thing going on that you don't understand. I think actually it's much simpler than that. And doing it, taking time to do it right rather than jumping on the bandwagon to some of these really complex things is really important. And one of the things that mattered to me the most as a leader in my organization and how I run the business is checking back in on my human intuition, because sometimes our gut feel is really important. It comes from years of wisdom, of experience, talking to people and applying different models, renewing and refreshing the way we work. And if something's telling you it just feels like there's something not right here, listen to that voice, amplify it and test it, because that is that's our human voice talking, and we don't listen to it enough. So really lovely to see you as well, Catherine, and everyone here. Thank you so much for your engagement. We're going to sign off now. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've had a great time. Thank you, Ant. You're a superstar.
Thank you.
To co-host with, as usual. I love talking to you on these conversations. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been fun, and I'm looking forward to having more of these conversations because I have a feeling this will not be the last.
Great. Thanks, and we will we'll have some more coming up, hopefully some monthly pieces looking at psychological safety maybe next month. So join us for hopefully another open and engaging conversation. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. We'll hang around for a little while, but do say goodbye in the comments and let us know what you think. Get in touch, keep the conversation going. Thank you. Bye-bye.